Well, hello, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers. And yes, I know it's been a while since I've released a video talking about Star Trek: A Celebration of 60 years and stuff like that. And I do apologize. It's just that, here's the thing. I'm trying to stretch these videos out as long as I can to either get them out either by the end of the year or by September, which is the month that Star Trek is celebrating its 60th anniversary. So there you go. But hey, if I'm able to do either one of those, that's totally fine. If not, well then, hey, at least I did my best. So there you go. Now, before I get into today's main subject, I just want you guys to know that so far I have seen the first two episodes of Star Trek Starfleet Academy, and so far I'm enjoying it. But don't worry, like I said, later on I'll tell you my full thoughts on the series, or at least season one, when it's over with. So there you go. But yeah, anyway. So, what is on the agenda today? Well, today I'm be ranking all of the Star Trek shows that I have seen in full. Unfortunately, though, this means I'm only going to be talking about the original series, the animated series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise. So there you go. Because, like I said, I have not finished Discovery. I've only watched season 1 of Picard. I've yet to watch season 2. I haven't seen Prodigy, I have not seen Lower Decks, and I have not seen Strange New Worlds. And as I mentioned before, I've only seen the first 2 episodes of Starfleet Academy, so there you go. That being said, let's get into this, shall we? So, starting at the bottom of the list, I have Star Trek, the animated series. Yes, and I know what some of you are saying, wait, there was a Star Trek animated series? And yes, indeed, there was. Back in the mid-70s, to be precise. Of course, why am I ranking the animated series at the bottom of the list? Well, it's probably because of the fact that, since the show came out in the 70s, let's just say that shows back in the 70s didn't have the same animation budgets as animated shows today. Which means that you will see a lot of reused animation, and of course a lot of reuse of musical cues and things like that. Not to mention, in certain episodes, you see shots of half the character's face in the frame and another character's face almost right next to them. I don't know why, but it's just kind of weird, I guess. I'm not sure why they did that, but again, it's just kind of weird. So there you go. But on the opposite side of things, the fact that the show was animated means that they were able to do things that they couldn't do in the animated series means that they can do things in the original series due to, again, budget restraints. So there you go. And don't get me wrong, the animated series does have some pretty good episodes. My personal favorite is the episode Yesteryear, which basically serves as a sequel to the episode City on the Edge of Forever. Except in Yesteryear, Spock has to go back in time in order to make sure his younger self pretty much survives the test in the wilderness, because if Spock doesn't do that, then his younger self will die, and of course no one will know who he is, and so on and so forth, and yada yada yada. And yada yada yada, timey-wimey. And stuff like that. So yeah. But of course, like I said, the animated series does have some flaws, but of course it does make up for it in writing and again, execution, so there you go. But yeah, anyway. Next on the list, and this might not come as a shock to anyone who knows me, but next on the list is Enterprise. Yes, Star Trek Enterprise. The prequel show that, only lasted 4 seasons, and yes, I know there's been rumblings about a Star Trek Archer series, which will probably pick up sometime after the events of Enterprise. But really, I did like Enterprise. And then the finale came around, and it turns out it was all a simulation on the holodeck of the Enterprise D. Seriously. The entire final episode of Enterprise all took place on the holodeck of the Enterprise D. And we obviously see that when we see the characters of Will Riker and Deanna Troi show up. What the hell? And also, in the beginning, what is with Archer's deal with Vulcans? Like, seriously? And of course, the Vulcans all trying to be like, oh, so superior to humans and blah, blah, blah. Let's remind everyone that the whole Federation would have existed if Vulcans and humans didn't make first contact with each other in the first place, thanks to Zefram Cochrane, which we all saw in Star Trek First Contact. But still, despite all of that, I think Enterprise is a fine show, and it's also for Star Trek should have an opening song instead of just a theme. So there's that. Of course, I do like the inclusion of Archer's theme that they played during the end credits. So there's that. And also, I do like the Mirror Universe two-parter episode In a Mirror Darkly. It's actually really dang good. It's a really dang good episode, and honestly, I wish that if Enterprise had been renewed for another season, then it could have had an entire season take place in the Mirror Universe. But unfortunately, that did not end up happening, so there you go. But yeah, anyway, moving on from that, next show is the original series. Yes, the original series, the one that started it all. And to be perfectly honest, though, even though a lot of people would say it's cheesy or dated or whatever, I mean, for the very first Star Trek show, the original series is pretty damn good, even by today's standards. But of course, if you can get past some of the effects and maybe some of the writing in the early episodes, it's still a pretty darn good show, and there are a lot of really darn good episodes, especially the aforementioned City on the Edge of Forever, which is my all-time favorite episode, so there's that. And of course, you can't talk about the original series without mentioning the episode Space Seed, which served as the basis for Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, despite the fact that of course, there's whole thing that Space Seed was a season 1 episode, and the character Chekhov didn't appear until season 2, which brings up that old continuity era thing about Chekhov knowing who Khan was, which again makes no sense because again Chekhov was introduced in season 2 and Space Seed is a season 1 episode. So there you go. But still, despite all that, the original series is pretty darn good, and I do highly recommend checking it out just for curiosity's sake. So there you go. Anyway, next on the list we have Star Trek Voyager. Ah yes, Voyager. The show in which almost every single episode they hit the restart button. They hit the restart button to show that hey, nothing's wrong on Voyager, but then oh no, they're running out of supplies, and oh no, looks like the ship might not make it. Reset button, everything's fine again. But of course, this show is still pretty darn good, despite all that. And of course, this show is most memorable for a couple things. One, having the first female captain, and of course, number 2, well, it's first female captain on a television show, but also for the Borg. Ah yes, the Borg. The villains that they couldn't use until after Star Trek First Contact came out. So there you go. And of course, if it weren't for the Borg, then we wouldn't have the character of Seven of Nine. The character which a lot of people say saved Voyager from cancellation. And to be pretty honest though, I do kind of agree with that. I mean, 709 is a fascinating character, and of course her inclusion in Star Trek Picard was really darn good. But still in Voyager, well, let's say the character had a lot to go through and stuff like that. And of course, let's not forget the aforementioned, and of course, let's not forget about what I consider to be, well, probably the most bizarre relationship in the entire franchise, Chakotay and Seven of Nine. I mean, really? I mean, it's obvious. I mean, to me, it was obvious that Chakotay actually had feelings for Janeway, but for some reason they switched up to Chakotay having feelings for Seven of Nine. Why? I have no idea. But still, despite all that, Voyager just has some really good episodes, and the finale is top notch, and I love it. So, there you go. Right, moving on to number 2. And I know this might piss some people off, but I'm going to say it anyway. My second favorite Star Trek show is Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And yes, I know a lot of people say that DS9 is their favorite show and blah blah blah, but here's the thing, okay? I like Deep Space Nine a lot, okay? As a matter of fact, tonight I'm going to actually start watching season 4 of DS9 on DVD. But here's the thing. It is my second favorite Star Trek show, but that doesn't mean I don't like it. There are a lot of things that I absolutely love about Deep Space Nine. The character development, the Dominion War story arc, and so on and so forth. There's so many things I like about this show. But here's the thing. And no, it's not because the show takes place on a space station. It's because, well, there was another show that was on called, oh yeah, Babylon 5. Now, I'm not saying that Babylon 5 is better than Deep Space Nine. Far from it. I mean, it's just, well, if you look at it, yes, both the shows do have a lot of similarities. But in my opinion, DS9 is better than Babylon 5. So there you go. But no, I don't really have a whole lot of issues with Deep Space Nine, far from it. It's just that, well, there is one little area just one little thing that I just don't understand. Okay, so here's the thing. At the end of season 6, Jadzia Dax dies. The Dax symbiote is then transferred into Ezri, and there we get Ezri Dax. Now, of course, here's the thing. Before all this, Jadzia Dax was married to Worf, okay? But when Ezri Dax comes around, she no longer has those feelings. She no longer has the same feelings for Worf as Jadzia did. Which again, I guess makes perfect sense. But you know who Ezri ended up with? Dr. Julian Bashir. The guy who had sort of a fascination with Jadzia Dax and wanted to date her and stuff like that and blah 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 blah. But then of course, when Worf came along, Jadzia was like, "Ooh, hi." And then of course, and as we all, and again, Jadzia and Worf got married and so on and so forth. But then when Ezra came along, she was like, who do I run into feelings for? Is it Jadzia's current partner? Is it the guy that she was married to? Or this doctor? I would go with the doctor. And so on and so forth. But yes, I get it. But yeah, I mean, I do kind of get it, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, Dr. Julian Bashir was kind of a creepo. I mean, he was going after women right and left. I'm just like, dude, really? And yeah, I know, and I guess Ezri and Julian decided to act on their own cry to love for each other, which I totally get. But honestly, I'm not sure if Jadzia had any actual feelings for Julian other than just friendship. But, oh well then. But still, like it. But overall, Deep Space Nine is a great series, and the finale is another top-notch one, and I absolutely dig it. So there you go. And of course, coming in at number 1, to no surprise to anyone at all, is Star Trek: The Next Generation. Now, this was the early Star Trek. I believe this was the very first Star Trek show I remember watching, and honestly, I really, really dug it. So yeah. Also, now that I've seen all 7 seasons, I can safely say that I still enjoy this show for what it was. I mean, this show came out, I think, about less than a year or so after Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home came out, and this show rocked. No, this was the very first Star Trek show to have 7 seasons, which is insane. So insane that they ultimately did the same thing with Deep Space Nine and Voyager. Yeah, those shows also had 7 seasons. And then Enterprise came along and it had 4 seasons, so there you go. But yeah, anyway. So overall though, Next Generation is such a darn good show. And there are so many great episodes. I mean, you have the best of both worlds. You have Yesterday's Enterprise. and so many others to choose from. It's really good. So yeah. Not to mention that, hey, Miles O'Brien and Worf, they got transferred from TNG over to DS9, and honestly, I think that those characters had better character development on DS9 than they did on Next Generation. But that's just me, so there you go. But yeah, anyway. And of course, you can't talk about Next Generation without mentioning the character of Q, played brilliantly by John Delancey. I mean, seriously, this character was so popular that he appeared in one episode of DS9 and then again in several episodes of Voyager, so there's that. But still, overall though, to me, Next Generation is my favorite Star Trek show and also has my favorite captain. Of course, we'll get into that later in another ranking episode. But still, overall, to me, I just absolutely love TNG because it was the very first Star Trek show that I remember watching. So, yeah. So anyway, that's my ranking of all the Star Trek shows. Let me know what your rankings are in the comment section below. And of course, next time we're going to be ranking the movies. So be on the lookout for that. So until next time, live long and prosper, everybody.